Hi folks, it's Connie from FAFFDesigns. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a brand ambassador for Dixie Belle Paint, and today I am going to give these bamboo and wicker bedside tables a makeover in FAFFDesign style. Okay, so the first thing to do when you are painting wicker or cane is to give the woven areas, so the cane or the wicker, which in this case is the drawer front, the top of the bedside and the little shelf that you see at the bottom, give those a good hoover, because you can get dust and fluff and all manner of things trapped in that wicker that a normal clean, i.e. a clean with white lightning and a sponge or a cloth, wouldn't get out. So just make sure you hoover the woven areas of the wicker or the cane first, just to remove any dust or anything that might have got trapped in that weave. Then the prep work is actually very similar to a standard piece. So I have my gloves on, I have got my warm water in a bucket. I've already put the white lightning into the warm water. So white lightning is a granulated cleaner. It dissolves in water and gives a really good degreasing cleaning liquid. I'm using a microfiber cloth and I'm just rubbing it into all of the recesses. I'm going to do upside down, I'm going to do inside the drawer. I'm going to make sure I give the wicker areas a really good scrub, because obviously it's not a flat surface, there's lots of little nooks and crannies, so I'm going to make sure I give that a really good thorough clean. And then when the piece has been thoroughly cleaned with white lightning, you need to make sure you rinse off the cleaning residue with clean water and a clean cloth. So I'm just doing the exact same as I just did, but with clean water. So just making sure none of the cleaning products are left on the surface of the area where you're going to paint, because this can cause issues with the paint adhering to the surface. When you've allowed the piece to dry, the next thing you need to do is to make sure that you give the surface a key. Now, the framework of the bedside tables was made out of bamboo, which had a varnish on, and the varnish was slightly flaky in areas. So I'm using the medium Radpad sanding sponge, which is the coarsest one, to remove any flaking varnish and to also give the piece a scuff sand all over, to make sure that the paint has a surface that it can grip onto and that it's not too slick of a surface. So you can see I'm doing all the individual legs. I also turn this piece upside down because I plan on painting the underneath, and I'm also going to be giving the drawer sides a stencil, so I gave those a scuff sand as well. And all you're doing is just roughing up that surface to provide a little bit of grip for the paint to stick to. Then the last thing you want to do is give the cane or wicker areas a good hoover again, or vacuum, and basically this is to remove any dust that has been trapped in there from when you are scuff sanding. now for the fun part, the painting. I'm using the colour Evergreen from Dixie Belle Paint, which is one of my all-time favourite colours. I love green, and this is a real zingy, bright green. I'm using the small oval synthetic brush, and I'm also using a continuous mister bottle with water in it. So I'm starting with the cane areas first, and you'll notice that I'm using a really small amount of paint, and I use less paint than what I usually would on a standard surface, and I'm using more water than what I usually would, so more water and less paint. And you can see that I'm crisscrossing the area, and I'm also swirling my paintbrush, which is basically getting the paint into all of the nooks and crannies of the cane area. It's a good idea with Wicker and cane to build up the layers thinly, because otherwise you can get areas where the paint will pool, and obviously that's not going to look great. So it's a good idea to just apply the paint as thinly as possible. The first layer of this actually just looked like a stain or a paint wash. It was that thin, but because it was a lot more watered down, it allowed me to work the paint into all of the little nooks and crannies on the cane area. I'm going to speed this up because the first coat can take a while to get full coverage, but I'm also using an artist brush here just to make sure that there's nice clean lines around where the draw slides in. But basically it's just about getting as a thinner coat on as possible, but ensuring that it is in all of the nooks and crannies. And I also, although I didn't film it, I did also do the underneath of this piece because it's quite leggy and you can see underneath, so I wanted to make sure that it was aesthetically pleasing when it was finished. Okay, so the first coat's thoroughly dry, and remember I used slightly more water than usual, so I did let that sit for a good couple of hours before I applied my second coat. And the second coat is really about building up coverage of the evergreen paint and making sure that it is a really solid block colour, because that's the look I'm going for with these. I want a really funky, solid colour. So again, I'm going to speed it up for you a little bit so that we're doing some speed painting, but it's really just about making sure that you get really good coverage on those woven areas. It helps if you get really good lighting, so I'm right next to a window, but if you tilt the piece up and look at it from different angles, you'll quite often see, as I did, some areas that I'd missed first time round, but definitely turning it around upside down, looking at it from different angles, you'll see some pieces that you've missed. So all in all, the frame part, which is made out of bamboo, took 2 coats of evergreen to cover, and the wicker or cane areas took 3 coats, and that's because I was using really thin coats and slightly more water than usual. So it's still not really bad coverage considering I was using super thin coats and watered down quite a lot. Okay, so I've set the bedside to one side to dry, and I'm going to use a round Dixie Belle synthetic brush along with the Cozy Sweater stencil, and I'm going to wrap a little bit of masking tape around the brush to keep the bristles nice and compact and give me a good stencil brush. And I'm going to use the same colour as the rest of the bedsides to apply through the stencil. When you stencil, you need to add paint onto the tip of your brush and then remove the excess onto a rag or a paper towel, and this stops with bleed through on the stencil and gives you a nice crisp line. Okay, back to the bedsides. These have dried now for a few hours next to a heater to speed the process up, and I'm going to top coat them with Dixie Belle's Gloss Clear Coat for a really nice shine. I'm using the mini angled synthetic brush. I am basically using the same technique that I applied the paint with, so I'm putting very thin layers over the piece. I'm working in small areas and I'm crisscrossing the brush to make sure that it gets into all of the nooks and crannies. Here we go with the fast forward button again, and I'm basically just doing the same thing to the shelf at the bottom, working it all into the wicker and making sure that there's no drips or too much product applied to the round legs, and just turning it around, making sure I get every angle. And I'm going to leave this to dry before doing the next coat. So just to prove I wasn't fibbing about doing the underneath of the bedsides, I just thought I'd show you a quick clip of me top coating them. So I'm just using exactly the same process, but I am applying it a little bit more liberally because it is a flat surface. So I'm applying it very similarly to how I would do on a standard piece of furniture, laying the top coat on and then just ensuring there are no brush marks or any places where the top coat's pulled, because this will be noticeable when it's dry. So here we are after a couple of coats of gloss top coat and the stencil detail, and you can see the coverage is fabulous. And here's the final shot. I've staged it with some hot pink accessories to make the green pop. Thanks for watching everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure you subscribe to my channel.